Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for logging on and joining us today. I'm Elaine. I'll be hosting this webinar today titled Studying a Masters in Occupational and Organisational Psychology, course overview. I'm going to introduce our speakers shortly and we'll begin, but first I'd like to encourage everyone to use the chat box. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, pop your name in there, let us know where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. There's also a Q&A box, so if anyone thinks of any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to pop them in there, and then we're going to take some questions at the end of the webinar as well. So if everyone's ready, I'm very pleased to introduce our presenters today. We've got our course director, Dr. Emma Russell from the University of Sussex. And Emma today is joined by Shamim, who studied this degree last year and was also a Chevening Scholar.
Thanks, Alina. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this course overview. I'm the course director, Dr. Emma Russell. I am somebody who sits in both the academic and the practitioner worlds. So I am a chartered and registered occupational psychologist, which means I work in practice with people in work, trying to understand and to help them to optimize the work experience for them, for their teams, for their organizations. But I'm also a reader in occupational and organizational psychology at the University of Sussex Business School, and that's where I undertake all of my research and also, of course, my teaching and lecturing on this programme. So we actually started this programme in 2020. It's a familiar year to many of you because, of course, it was the year of COVID. So we did face a few challenges that year, but we've now taken 5 excellent cohorts through the programme, and all of the team on the programme really enjoy being involved with our students. They're of a high standard, and they go on to do really interesting and involving careers within occupational and organisational psychology. And we're very, very proud of our alumni on this programme. We keep in touch with them, we follow them on LinkedIn, we see what they're up to, and they often indeed come back to continue to be involved in the programme, often as mentors or speakers for our current students. And we're really pleased to have Shamim with us today, who completed the programme last academic year. So just to tell you a little bit about what occupational and organisational psychology is, first of all, you may not be familiar with it because it's particularly for an international student, not necessarily phrasing that you might have heard overseas. But effectively, occupational and organisational psychology is concerned with the science of how people think, feel and behave at work. So we've very much got an emphasis on understanding the psychological mechanisms that promote well-being and work performance for individuals, teams and organisations. And within that remit, I guess what we're predominantly doing, which may differ from other types of psychology, is we're largely working with functioning adults. So we're not working with people who are operating at, say, clinical or subclinical levels. We're usually working with people who are engaged in society, in the world of work, and what we're trying to help with is to optimize the work experience for those people, to help them to thrive, to help them to fit into the world of work, but also working with organizations to ensure that they are designing jobs and work environments that are suitable for bringing out the best in people, to help people to feel well and productive and to make a contribution to society. So the kind of jobs that you might end up working in if you choose this programme and you end up going on to becoming an occupational or organisational psychologist are listed here on the board. There are many different areas and arenas that you can work in. You wouldn't necessarily always find jobs advertised for occupational and organisational psychologists. You might end up working in roles where they've advertised for, say, a management consultant or a well-being practitioner or a business psychologist or a work psychologist. But largely, I would say that these are the main arenas that you would find us working in. Probably the biggest of those is assessment, selection and development. So there is a very big industry, the psychometrics industry, where you might be involved in helping to design online psychometrics, for example, that could be administered to people as part of a recruitment process or even as part of developmental work to help people to identify their key strengths and any developmental needs that they might want to work on. Perhaps they're thinking of promotion or becoming a leader. So assessment work is very much involved in that kind of field. Psychometrics is probably the biggest part of that, but you also have interest in things like running interviews, situational judgment tests, assessment centres, work sample tests, and of course, with the rise of AI, there's also now lots of more technologically based assessments that utilise AI or gamification. Another key area is involved in training and coaching. So working with organisations to identify their where their workers maybe have particular developmental needs. So perhaps their workers are finding that they're not necessarily able to kind of manage stress effectively. And you might work to design some training programs to help individuals with that. You might also engage in more one-to-one executive coaching for people who are having particular problems or have particular strengths that they want to develop, maybe their leadership potential, for example. Wellbeing and stress, I think, is becoming probably one of the biggest areas now within our field. We are facing challenging times in the world today, and organisations are often going through lots of change and placing lots of demands on their workers. So one way in which we would work as occupational psychologists is thinking about any interventions that we can apply to help prevent stress from occurring in the first place, or if stress is existent for individuals, teams, or organisations, to look at ways in which we can mitigate that, to manage that, and to reduce its impact on people's well-being and work performance. And a lot of that kind of work then also straddles into the arena of work and job design. We are facing huge changes in the world of work today. Technology, digitalisation, AI, a more global workplace. So it's trying to find ways in which we can design work that is appropriate and suitable and brings out the best in people, given all of these challenges that we face. And really, this is a very exciting field, I think, to be working in at the moment, really thinking about the future of work and where we want to go. We also have interest in managing change and conflict. So when you think about organisations that are made up of many teams and departments, there's often change within the structures of those teams and departments, but also where there may be some hostilities between teams and departments, and how we can work with organisations to help manage that. We also work very much to help build leaders, to help build productive cultures. So we can work with organisations there, and of course with team building as well. So individuals rarely operate in a vacuum in organisational and working life. It's thinking about how you can relate to people more effectively and build effective, diverse, creative teams. So a lot of the work that we're involved in is very much about trying to bring theory into practice, really utilising academic scholarly knowledge, scientific knowledge to apply to the world of work, so that any practices that we're recommending and suggesting are grounded very much in an evidence base. So we really do want to make sure that the teaching on the programme is heavily research-led. So we focus very much on what the latest academic literature is saying. But we were also really, really keen to work with practitioners, and we have great links with practitioners to ensure that all of the training and the teaching that we give you is focused around what's relevant in the world of work today, and how you will actually be going out there and utilising this knowledge when you start work as an occupational or organisational psychologist. So we'll work in a range of different industry sectors. Probably the public sector is the biggest of those, particularly military settings, the NHS, the civil service would utilise occupational psychologists. But you could also work in the private sector, you could work in a consultancy, you could set yourself up as self-employed. Psychometric test publishers are big employers, particularly within the UK and the USA. And you could also end up working in a research institute if you really like the research side of things, or even in academia. I think a lot of occupational psychologists that work in academia, like me, have a foot in both camps where you're very much involved still with practitioners and with academic working. So we really are focused on trying to help people to thrive, to be the best people that they can in the workplace, to experience good health and well-being, to feel fulfilled, but also to make a contribution, to feel like they are achieving. So focusing on work performance and functioning within the world of work. There are some occasions where you may work with people who have perhaps been out of work for a period of time, so either with the unemployed or those on long-term sick. And then you might be finding ways with them to help to transition back into the world of work. So in terms of this particular program, if that all whets your appetite and you think, yeah, occupational organisational psychology looks like the kind of program for me, you'll be pleased to know that we have a really nice cross-disciplinary focus within the programme at Sussex. So everybody who teaches on the programme are academic staff at the university, so we don't often use visiting lecturers, for example. We do want to have our main staff cohort involved on the programme so that they are committed and dedicated to the teaching. And many of us are practitioners. So whether we're working in occupational psychology or we have had experience in the world of work, we will be able to bring those insights into our lectures, into our teaching. And the programme is jointly run by the School of Business and also the School of Psychology. So it is a joint programme, which means that you get teaching from people who have more of a business background and from people who have more of a psychology background. I would say we predominantly lean towards having psychology backgrounds, even if we're in the business school. We are also accredited by the British Psychological Society, so the course is an accredited course if you are interested in the route towards chartership. What that means is if you have graduate basis for chartership, so you have undertaken an appropriate undergraduate qualification, usually in psychology, this programme will enable you to achieve your stage 1 out of the 2 stages that you need to be a chartered occupational psychologist within the UK. And that also means then that you could go on to become registered with the Health and Care Professions Council as a registered practicing psychologist. This is all really important in terms of the credibility of both the course and the qualification that you end up with at the end of the programme. So you are able to say to people that yes, you have undertaken an accredited programme that is recognised by the British Psychological Society and the HCPC in the UK. We also place a strong professional emphasis on the opportunities that we provide to you. So we work with many professional mentors, and what that means is that we have a wide network of practitioners who are associated with the course, who are themselves practicing occupational or organisational psychologists, and out of the goodness of their heart, they link up with our students every year. So if you're interested in professional mentoring, every student would be given the opportunity to be paired with a professional mentor. And that professional mentor will meet with you at least once a term to discuss with you your career goals and to help you think about where you want to work in the future. And lots of our students have really excellent relationships with their professional mentors. They maintain them after the programme. Some of our students have even ended up working with our professional mentors within their particular organisations or businesses. So we'll tell you more about that during the programme itself and how to actually get paired with a professional mentor. We also bring practitioners in to speak on our lectures as part of either the actual lecture programme itself or as extracurricular activities. And we're always really keen to ensure that we are teaching you employability skills within the programme. So we try to limit our assignments, for example. We don't just want to be giving you essays to write or exams to do. We don't actually have exams on this programme. We want to make sure that you're generating outputs of the kind that you would need to use when you begin work. So that might involve, designing a poster or developing a podcast or doing a presentation about something that you found really interesting in the world of practice. And we have some opportunities as well for networking. So in this academic year, Shameen won't have experienced this yet, but we have recently set up a Sussex network of occupational and organisational psychologists who are practitioners and professionals operating in and around the Sussex area. And we hold regular networking events. So we've held 4 networking events since we started at the end of the summer last year. And the MOOP students, MSc, Occupational and Organisational Psychology students, are invited along to those networking events. It's a really nice opportunity to chat to people about what they do and to think about what you might want to do after the programme. We also have careers events that we organise with the library and with a panel of occupational psychologists who come along and tell you about their experiences to help you think about what kind of flavour of work you'd be interested in doing in the future. It's a very flexible programme, so we usually operate around 2 to 3 days of the week in terms of offering our lectures and our teaching. So if you're doing the programme full time across 1 year, you would usually expect to be coming into the university 2 to 3 days a week for your lectures, leaving in the other days, obviously, if you have other commitments, maybe some part-time work that you undertake, although we would very much encourage you to utilise as much time as possible on your studies. But we also recognise that people might want to do this programme part-time. Perhaps you have a demanding job, you might even have a full-time job, in which case, for the majority of the semesters, we would run the lectures on just 1 day a week, which means you can usually get 1 day a week, perhaps from your organisation, to release you to come and take part in the programme, or maybe have caring responsibilities, and this would fit with you. The only exception to this is in your second year, where for one of the semesters you need to be in for 1.5 days a week of contact time. But we do record all of our lectures, and our recordings are always made available after the session's completed. So for those of you who do have difficulties coming onto campus, there is that kind of backstop in place for you that you can access lectures remotely as well. We always offer the students the option of doing some further training in occupational testing. And it really depends each year on how many people want to take that up. So this year, people didn't want to take that up, but in previous years, that has been something that people have wanted to do. That's an optional extra, so there are cost implications to that. So as I mentioned, we don't have any exams on this programme. It's 100% coursework. And the assignments that we include are very academic in that we're obviously looking for a high standard of scholarship from you, but they are related to the kinds of outputs that you might be expected to produce when you go out and work. So we might ask you to write an evidence-based report, for example, or we might ask you to do an oral presentation on a particular topic, the kind of presentation that you might give when you're actually out there working with clients. We have 9 core modules that are 15 credits each, and these often reflect the specialist research areas of our teaching team. And there's also a dissertation, which is 45 credits, which you undertake over the summer months usually. And this is really a supervised research project where you can really dig much more deeply into the topic of choice that you have. So something that's really kind of piqued your interest across the programme, you can really delve much deeper into as part of your dissertation. In fact, I remember Shameen did a really interesting dissertation. Maybe she'll be talking to you about that today. So all of these areas cover the BPS recognised areas that you would expect to have some teaching in as part of the stage 1 qualification. Really interesting areas there. I think a particular highlight would be the Sussex Experts Research and Practice module, which I think is actually a unique module. I've never seen a module like this across other similar programmes. And this is where we have all of the teaching team plus other occupational organisational psychologists in the university and in practice who come along and talk to you about their state-of-the-art research. So it's telling you about the latest research projects and client projects that they've been working on, to give you a bit more of an insight into the kind of work that we're really specialising in at the moment. And the students really seem to enjoy that particular module. So here's our current teaching team, and most of this team have been with us now for several years. So you'll see that some of us come from business, some of us come from psychology, and some of us are support services. So all students will get a student academic success advisor. That's Sandy Soma at the moment, who works with you to help you with your academic skills across the year. But we also have 3 PhD students who are associated with the course. They themselves have done masters in occupational psychology, and they're there if you ever feel like you want to speak to somebody, maybe at a similar stage in their career to you, about some of the assignments or their experiences of psychology. In terms of our expertise, we do cover a wide range of areas. My particular area is in the digitalisation of work and how that impacts well-being. And I do a lot of that work with the NHS in the UK, in particular through my lab, AgiLab. And actually through AgiLab, I've often had projects that I've been able to bring students in on to help with that. Michelle is interested in looking at attachments in the workplace, understanding what friendship at work looks like. And actually, I think she's starting to look more at spirituality in community groups within the workplace as well, which is quite an interesting novel area, I think. Smedar is known for her research on negotiations and also emotions in conflict, particularly hope in conflict, and understanding more about how we regulate our emotions during negotiation processes and conflict processes. Zaira, who has a background in the banking industry, is very interested in looking at connected leaders. So these are kind of middle managers, really, people who have to answer to the top, but also manage staff beneath them, and is getting more involved in looking at artificial intelligence and how it's used in selection processes. Jonathan looks very much at leadership. He works with really big organisations to help them with their leadership training, their leadership skills. Lilith is always a very popular lecturer with her research on fem theory, really bringing a very critical feminist perspective to organisations and work, talking about how things like menopause, menstruation, breastfeeding is experienced within the workplace. And she also works with marginalised groups, and particularly the LGBTQ plus community, and work on allyship and advocacy there. Matt in psychology looks at economic and cultural inequalities, understanding how socioeconomic status can impact our career journeys. And Sean works with high-performing teams, often in the field of sports. So looking at sports as work and different performers, and how certain performers maybe take extra resources in those teams. And then finally, Henry is our kind of quants expert. She teaches you on your research methods and is a bit of a whiz at SPSS, R, multi-level modelling, any platform you can think of. She's probably been there and has an interest in that. And this is just a selection of some of the mentors that have been associated with the programme over the years. It's really nice now that our mentors are starting to be made up of some of our alumni. Maybe we'll be able to invite Shameen back to be a mentor in future years. But really, the students love working with our mentors. They're really friendly. They mentor you voluntarily just because they really want to be involved in the next generation of psychologists. And yeah, we're really, really pleased to have such a great range of professionals associated with the programme. I think I've mentioned the SNOOP programme, Sussex Network programme. If you join the course, you'll be known as the MOOPsters. So the MOOPsters come to all our SNOOP events. We obviously like rhyming on this programme, and that's a really nice opportunity as well to meet people in the field. So I'm going to hand over now, I think, to Alina, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the university itself and life at Sussex.
So hi everyone. We're a one campus university. We are based in the village of Falmer and we're surrounded by the beautiful South Downs National Park. But we're also really close to the busy city of Brighton and Hove. So it's really the best of both worlds. You know, you've got rolling fields for miles that you can explore, but then you've also got a really busy, popular student city like Brighton on our doorstep. And there's loads of ways of travelling into Brighton. It's really convenient. Brighton's a really green city, and so there's cycle paths all the way around the city and to and from campus. So if you've got a bike, bring a bike onto campus and feel free to sort of travel that way. We've also got a train station in Falmer, and the trains run every 15 minutes or so, and they take 9 minutes from campus. So it's a really quick way of getting into town. And then we've also got the buses. The buses are great because they run 24/7. So if you happen to be living on campus and you want to experience the nightlife in Brighton, you don't want to be sort of rushing to get the last train home, then it is really great that we have the buses operating 24/7 and they go to and from Brighton and all around campus as well. And then Brighton is just under an hour's train journey into London. So, you know, we're really close to the capital. And then we also have Gatwick Airport on the way into London as well. So, if you're an international student or you would like to do a bit of travelling, then it is really handy to have Gatwick Airport on our doorstep as well. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to quickly talk to you about the entry requirements. So the entry requirements for this degree are an upper second class undergraduate honours degree or above. Ideally, your qualification should be in a subject that is relevant, such as psychology, business management, or sociology, and you also need to have just demonstrated a high level of research methodology. Um, they also accept applicants with a lower second class degree with at least 57% or with work experience. And these are based on a case by case basis. So if you have achieved a lower second class degree of at least 57%, there's always a discussion to be had with the team and with admissions based on your experience and things like that. Uh, Next slide, please. So the information on fees can be found on our website for home and international students. So please do check out the website. But I'll just quickly mention that we have a real wide variety of scholarships and bursaries available to UK, EU, and international students. There's a list here of just some of our examples, and there's a lot more detail on our website about the scholarships available. But I'll just quickly mention that we have the Sussex Alumni Scholarship, which basically awards £3,000 to all Sussex graduates. So if you have already done an undergraduate at Sussex and you're planning on doing a Sussex MBA or Masters, then you should be eligible for a £3,000 scholarship as well. But like I say, double check the website for more information. Next slide, please. So we have all sorts of support services available on campus. We've got a nice long list there. I'll just quickly talk you through some of them. So the Student Centre is the brand new building on campus. It's where the students can socialise, study, and access all of the support services. So if you're having money issues, fees issues, if you're struggling with your mental health or you would like some disability advice, anything like that, the team there do a fantastic job at supporting our students with support. We also have our student academic success advisors, we have student mentors, we have wellbeing ambassadors, we have international student support, we have our residential life team. So if you're living on campus, you need some support, they're great there as well. Disability support team is also available. You know, if you have a disability, you need some support with accessibility or anything like that, then again, the team can support you there. We also have a chaplaincy. I'm going to talk about the meeting house in a little bit, but we have a multi-faith chapel on campus, a chaplaincy. They run multi-faith services on campus, and there's a real focus on well-being, meditation, and mental health. So definitely worth checking out the meeting house because they do all sorts of sessions there to sort of support our students with their mental health. We also offer money advice and financial support. And then finally, there is a free and confidential therapy service on campus as well, and that supports many, many students on our campus every single year. Last slide, please. We're a one campus university, so all of our teaching spaces, services, and the majority of our accommodation is on campus. We have a couple of accommodation options in Brighton, but the majority is on campus, and we have 10 different accommodations on campus. But it's very much like a little village here, so anything that you could potentially need for day-to-day life, chances are you can find it on campus. So we've got a 24/7, it's a library that's open 24/7 during term time. It's staffed during the day as well. There's different areas of the library. So if you're someone that likes to work in complete silence or you like to work in groups, there's different areas of the library that you can kind of use and utilize to support your study. There's rooms in the library that you can also hire out for group study, for private study, things like that. As I said, we've got the Student Life Centre. Again, that is staffed during the day. It's a great place to study, to socialise as well. There's again rooms there that you can hire out for private study. Some of the students hire out rooms if they'd like to do movie screenings or watch football matches together. So there's a real sort of split between socialising and using the area for study as well. We have our careers and employability team. They are an award-winning team. They do such a fantastic job. And actually, as a student at Sussex, you can use their services up to 3 years post-graduation. So when you graduate, you're not left on your own. You can still make use of their services. They have over 5,000 vacancies on their website every single year. And they also create hundreds of different workshops. So if you need any support with updating your CV or you're preparing for an interview, they can assist you with that as well. We have two gyms on campus. These are open Monday to Sunday. There's all sorts of facilities there. We've also got 40 different sports clubs in on campus as well. So if you're a competitive person, you'd like to sort of compete in a different sport, you can check out the list on our website. And then yeah, there's all sorts of facilities at the gym as well. There's tennis courts, badminton courts, squash courts. There's football fields, rugby fields, basketball courts, dance studios, martial art dojos. There's all sorts. So hopefully something for everyone, all sorts of different classes. We also have several shops on campus. We have a weekly food market that comes, and it's normally sort of run by the Students' Union. There's street food stalls, there is clothes stalls, plant stalls, poster stalls, things like that. And then we also have a little co-op shop, which is handy for, bits if you miss things with your lunch, you want to get some drinks or anything like that. And then there's also Taj the Grocer, which is an international food store, which again is great to have on campus. It's fairly new. As I said before, we have our meeting house, some multi-faith chapels there. Like I said, they run all sorts of services there. We also have Islamic prayer rooms on campus. We have a post office. It's really handy, if you want to return a parcel, if you want to get a stamp, you don't have to go into town for that if you're living on campus. It's really convenient. We also have a health centre and a pharmacy. As a student at Sussex, you're automatically eligible to use those services. And normally they offer like drop-in appointments and things like that. So it's really, really helpful if you're feeling a little bit under the weather. If you're using the health centre, you might have prescriptions or medications to pick up. And again, there's a pharmacy on campus, so it's really, really useful to have that. We have our Students' Union. The Students' Union is around to ensure that the students' voice is heard and responded to, and they also are around to improve the student experience. So they do this through creating lots of jobs on campus, through creating lots of events, and they also help run our societies. We have 180 different societies on campus, ranging from societies for different countries, for different sports, for different musics. We have, for example, off the top of my head, we have a dog walking society, so they take dogs for walks. We have a Taylor Swift society. There's a Zumba society. There's a law society. There's all sorts. So something for everyone. And then finally, we have all sorts of cafes and restaurants on campus. Monday to Sunday, you can always find some sort of breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So yeah, there's all sorts to check out. If you're not familiar with campus, really worth coming to visit us. Thank you.
Okay, I'll introduce then Shamim, who is waiting in the wings there to speak to you. So Shamim took part in the master's programme last academic year, so she's a fairly recent graduate, and hopefully we'll be able to tell you a bit more about her experience of the programme, life in Sussex, and what happens next. So over to you, Shamim.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Emma. I was just listening at the new things that are happening, and I feel like I need to come back and do again another master's just for the sake of it. But I think just to start off, my name is Shamim Ibrahim. I did my master's the last academic year, that's 2023, 2024, and currently I am a founder of Psych Solutions, which is it's a consultancy, a social impact driven consultancy, redefining obviously workplaces because it's organizational and occupational psychology in Africa. And we're doing that by actually looking at contextual barriers that are facing human-centered approaches. That's quite mouthful, but once you get through this course, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, in terms of my experience as a Chevening scholar, I think that's one of the maybe best advantages I had was to take time to really rigorously look at what is it that you're looking for in a university. So I had time to really, you know, research about everything. And Sussex was like top of my list because you have to look at things that are course specific. You have to look at things that are also community specific, university specific, and you have to defend all this from your writing, from interviews process. And when you look at the course specific for me, it was always looking at it in terms of how the course itself, like the breakdown Emma has given you, is very futuristic in terms of what you're looking at. Occupational and organizational psychology is not something that is from my space right now popular, but it's something that is so relevant. So having to study that master's and then come out of it and still be able to apply it and find yourself in a place where it is even more important for you to be in that field than even before. So those were the things that really spoke out to me, how futuristic and how relevant the things that I was learning. You're speaking of well-being, and it is like what Emma has said right now, the biggest conversations around mental health, which is so relevant. You're looking at future of work where we're discussing AI. While you're studying these things out in the field, they're very, very practical and very relevant in what you're going to do. And also, I think for me, also the SAP module, Emma said that's one of the favorites, but it's truly a highlight of the experiences that you get because you get to understand research that is not only done in terms of, what is happening in the spaces, but also the impact of that research. And you're getting access to all this wonderful research and just feeding your knowledge. And there is a part where you're being asked in terms of how you're studying it to write reflective essays of that, which is very, very interesting because it gives you a chance to really also ask yourself in the terms of how that research is applicable to you or to what is happening and how do you even understand it. So those are things that when I really think about my experience in terms of the course itself, how they built me as a profession right now and coming back to my space where I'm very confident in as much as you have to discuss who is an occupational psychologist, what can you do, what do you bring on board, that knowledge, that practical approach and that relevance. And also you get almost like a cheat code of what's going to happen in the future when you're because of the course, because you are very futuristic in how you're thinking and being more innovative in how then you create solutions that are very applicable to your context. And that's why I have that context barrier that I'm trying to address with my consultancy. And then when you look at also the community or even the university, the learning that is happening beyond the classroom, you're learning from an international, space of a very close knit of can I call them also now friends who were once classmates. And these are people now professionally I'm still able to talk to and still understand how what we learned is still applicable to them in their context and look at it also from my context. So you have a community that is not only supportive as a student community, but also a community of the school itself and the area itself. Alina did mention everything else, but she forgot the beach. So there is that aspect of there's a lot that happens in what you can as a student, but also your life outside of that classroom that is still very growth oriented, and you grow as a person. I feel like that's the most important part of all my learnings in terms of the knowledge and the expertise I've gained from the course, but also as a person, interacting with the different cultures, interacting with the different communities, being part of these societies, and also getting the help that you're getting. And then also just seeing the impact of the research. You have sessions that were being organized outside the classroom, and it's more of how is this impact of this research helping, say, with NHS, with, what Lilith is doing, which is mind-blowing, first of all, for me, I would always say that. But the growth and development as a whole being of a person in terms of just now moving forward and finishing my course, I feel like that is something that I truly gained both from the classroom and also outside the classroom. The networks, the friendships, all those have made me now, I don't want to say very different, but yeah, there's a difference in who you are once you start this master's course and who you actually end up being once you've, in a good way, in a very, very good way. Yeah, I think that covers really what I would say. And also there's I think everything Emma has highlighted really are things that I've experienced, and there are parts that are beyond even what she's spoken of, the things that maybe are not listed there, but you get, like, I did get the career coaching from one of the alumni, which was really, really very good for me, but also the opportunities that now I'm able to tap into just because of my master's and what I've been able to do, and also the networks through my mentorship. I'm currently still under another mentorship with a psychologist, business psychologist, Ben, and it's still because I was part of, say, the masters and the networks that have been have been able to actually grow out of my experience at the universities. So I would say that is just that continuous learning. Like when I say it's in terms of expertise, knowledge, there's a continuous learning of that expertise that I know I'm guaranteed just because I did my master's at the University of Sussex. Yes, roughly that covers that, unless maybe there's something specific as well. Alina, Emma.
I think that's great. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shameen. Alina, are you able to see if there's any questions or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it does. Let's have a look. I think one's actually just come in. So I'll just read this out. This is from Anna. She says, I'm a mature student with a 2-1 undergraduate degree, but not in the relevant subject. I do have 25 years experience working in business, so wanted to check if my application would be considered based on experience rather than relevant degree.
Yeah, I can take that. So I would be almost certainly sent your application to look at. So any borderline applications would come directly to me. So what I would look at is, as you say, is the actual experience that you've had in business, and whether you've had sort of experience across some of the domains that we would look at in occupational psychology. I think the main thing often with mature students who haven't done a relevant degree is their previous experience of research methods. So it may be, I don't know what your undergraduate degree was, but it may be that you had, maths, statistics, research methods within that degree program, in which case that's absolutely fine. But if, let's say, you did a degree in, I don't know, English or history or something like that, you may not have had that experience in social science research. So that would mean that we would be looking to see whether you have done something yourself to build up that experience. And if you haven't, we would recommend to you some readings and potentially some courses that you might want to do. But I would certainly say to put your application in. I can have a look at it, and then if it looks like there's some questions that I have, we can get into some dialogue about that. So thank you for that question.
Great, thank you, Emma. There's a couple more actually, so I'll just read the next one. The next one is from Emily. They're asking, when will part-time students find out which days the contact hours will be on, and will this change over term?
Yes, so we are not allowed to say when they will be until timetabling releases the information. However, I can tell you that in every year of the programme so far, we have had the same 2 days of the week. So in your first year, let me just double check. That would be Mondays. And in your second year, that would be Thursdays. It has always been that way. I don't expect it to change, but we wouldn't be able to tell you that day of the week until September. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Emma. It's helpful to give people an idea, isn't it? Then we've got one more question, and like I say, guys, feel free to add any more if you think of any. But the final question at the moment is, do you provide an internship program?
No, as part of the program, we don't have a specific internship program. However, I don't know if Shameen can remember this. We get organisations contacting us regularly about any internship opportunities that they have. We would then just post them onto our shared platform that the academics and the students will share. So there are opportunities to do internships, but we don't have a specific scheme. I would say, however, that the mentoring scheme is a really, really good way of learning about the world of work and having that very close contact with senior professionals within the field.
Great, thank you very much. Another question's come in already. What does the path to accreditation look like if you're taking the course without a relevant undergraduate degree?
Okay, so this will be the same for any program that you would be applying to if you don't have what's called graduate basis for chartership. So any program that is BPS accredited can't help you towards your chartership until you get graduate basis for chartership. So there is a process for going about getting graduate basis for chartership. You can either apply to the BPS and ask them to look at the transcript of your degree, and if they feel that you've covered enough relevant modules, then you just pay a small administrative fee and you get your GBC. If you haven't got sufficient coverage of those modules, then you can do what's called a conversion program. The University of Sussex offers that conversion program. It's a year long and you get taught all the basics, all the fundamentals of psychology to give you graduate basis for chartership. However, I would say that not all students want to get their chartered status. You can still work in this field without being chartered and registered. What you cannot do is you cannot call yourself an occupational psychologist in the UK. So you could call yourself a work psychologist or a business psychologist or a founding executive director and still be working in the field. So even if you've got graduate basis for chartership, you might choose not to go down that chartership route. Really, it just means you can't use the protected title. And there are some organisations in the UK, excuse me, that won't take practitioners who don't have chartership, and that's predominantly within the public sector. So I think it's the NHS and the civil service who wouldn't employ a psychologist unless you were working towards chartership. But there are many, many organisations that would employ you even without that chartership option.
Great, thank you, Emma. We don't have any more questions at the moment. I'll just let everyone know that the recording of this session will be shared with you tomorrow. So obviously you're welcome to look back at it. Just give people an opportunity to see if there's any last questions before we end. I think there might be one more just come in actually. Oh no, just a thank you. Anna's saying thank you. Thanks for your answer. Thank you for your answer. Yeah, so I think if there's no other questions, if anyone thinks of any questions when they're gone, they're welcome to email us at study@sussex.ac.uk, and we'll get back to you. Or we could, pass you on to Emma if it's a more specific course question. But yeah, I think and Emma's put her email in the chat there as well. So it's emma.russell@sussex.ac.uk. So yeah, if anyone thinks of any questions afterwards, please do feel free to get in touch. Um, I don't think there's going to be any other questions. So if everyone is ready, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today and also thank Emma and Shameen for their time during the webinar today. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.